Well, for more on Panama's future under new leadership, let's bring in Remi Piet, Research Associate on Political Economy and Foreign Policy at the Florida International University and Senior Director at America's Market Intelligence. Welcome back to the show.
It's a pleasure, Rachel.
So what did we learn from this presidential and legislative election about what Panamanians want for their future?
Well, clearly we've seen a desire to change the regime in Panama, and President Varela did a few good things when he was in office, especially opening up to trade to China, but he had a very low popularity rate, up to 16% and 16% at the end of his mandate. So there was obviously a desire for change. At the same time, it was quite surprising to see that we still have the well-established political parties such as Cambio Democrático or the PRD of now President-elect Nito Cortizo that still have a strong hold on the elections, because the outsider candidates were not able to actually arrive at a level of above 20%, which was potentially what will happen in the next elections in Panama if things continue to be managed by discredited parties that are marred by corruption scandals, like has been the case for the last decades in Panama.
Now, you mentioned a few things there. Let's break some of it down. We know that outgoing President Juan Carlos Varela established formal ties with China and signed a number of cooperation deals on trade, infrastructure, banking, tourism, and other sectors. What impact did that have on both countries?
Well, for the moment, the actual result on the ground are still to be seen, because we're talking about a very large-scale agreement of trade agreement with China, but definitely it was a clear geopolitical move from the Varela administration, moving away from the traditional, let's say, Monroe Doctrine of being in the backyard of the United States and not turning towards China, to now being the open gate towards more investment from China, and also welcoming more trade agreements, in an agreement that was very skillfully negotiated on both sides by Panamanian authorities and by China on this, and is taken as an example for other countries in Central America and beyond.
So what do we know about Cortizo's position on the Panama-China relationship and those existing deals?
Well, clearly what was kind of an agreement between all candidates was to continue with this open door policies towards China. Cortizo, as we explained, actually met already with the Chinese ambassador, already had a clear declaration towards the United States that if the United States continue to move away from Central America, move away from trade agreements and aid programs that were in place for other countries in Central America, especially Salvador, Guatemala, and so on, but also that were actually potentially targeting Panama. If the U.S. were not able to step in and play a role of a constructing neighbor, then Panama's best interest is to turn towards other allies, and China is definitely the one knocking on the door, and the one that makes more sense for the Panamanian economy when we talk about trade issues and potential investment in infrastructure, investment in natural resources, in the mining sector, in the energy sector, where Panama can actually present a series of good opportunities for China.
So talk about the Panamanian economy that the new president is inheriting, as well as the reality of Cortizo really trying to implement these plans.
Well, when you look at the economy of Panama, it actually has not grown as fast as other countries in the continent. It's just 3.7% GDP growth on an annual basis, and that was quite a criticism that was actually geared towards Varela in the last few years of his administration. There's clear needs to actually clean up the politics and corruption throughout the economy, and Cortizo actually was elected on a promise to reform the way that public contract will be awarded and try to crack down on corruption. That's the classic, promise that a candidate does when he arrives before ahead of election. Whether or not he's going to be able to implement this, Cortizo is one of the very few Panamanian politicians that is quite, let's say, clean of past corruption scandals, which was not the case of Romulo Ru, for example, in the Martinelli administration 6 or 7 years ago. Whether he's going to be able to implement this is going to be very decisive in the capacity of Panama to clean its economy and encourage foreign investors to look at Panama as a place where they should invest and continue contributing to the economic growth of the country.
So as you mentioned, Panama does want to get more investment in there, but considering the geopolitical landscape in the region as well as beyond and these domestic pressures, what's your outlook for Panama's economy?
Well, Panama does have a series of great assets, and especially obviously in terms of geography, with the existence of the Canal de Panama, which allows for such a large amount of freight to be channeled through Panama. but also it has a series of opportunities in terms of the agricultural industrial sectors, also the natural resources in terms of mining, energy, as I was mentioning. It is a country that if you actually put in place the right sets of economic reforms and security for investors, you also have an educated workforce that actually can be an asset for investors. So if you actually put in place the right policies that will encourage investors to be more present, you can develop a series of industries and make the most also of very successful free trade, free zone areas that actually were without any fiscal pressure on them to create logistic basis when you actually channel goods through the Canal de Panama.
All right, thank you so much. Remi Piet there, Research Associate from Florida International University and Senior Director at America's Market Intelligence.
Thank you, Rachel.